Welcome to Foundation Fridays. This is an offshoot of Reverse Reset Restore, where we drop extra info on you on the last Friday of the month. This is the place where we talk about the books that are reshaping thoughts and belief systems, teaching us and guiding us into a deeper knowing of ourselves. Think of it as the book club for the soul. I'm your host, Sally, and I'm creating whole new worlds for myself, one page at a time.
The bread of her waist, a loaf I would knead with 8-year-old palms sweaty from play. My brother and I marveled at the ridges and grooves, how they would summit at her navel, how her belly looked like a walnut, how we were once seeds that resided inside. We giggled, my brother and I, when she would recline on the couch, lift her shirt, let her belly spread like cake butter in a pan. It was as much a treat as licking the sweet from electric mixers on birthdays. The undulating of my mother's belly was not a shame she hid from her children. She knew we came from this. Her belly was a gift we kept passing between us. It was both hers, of her body, and ours for having made it new, different. Her belly was an altar of flesh built in remembrance of us, by us. What remains of my mother's belly resides in a container of ashes I keep in a closet. Every once and again I open the box, sift through the fine crystals with palms that were once 8. Feel the grooves and ridges that do not summit now but rill through fingers. Granules so much more salt than sweet today. And yet still I marvel at her once body, even in this form say, I come from this.
This incredible poem was written by Sonya Renee Taylor, our Foundation Friday author today. If this is your first time visiting with me, welcome. I'm so grateful that you're here. On the last Friday of each month, I drop a bonus episode, an episode that is a little bit book review, a little bit author biography, and a whole lot about how the book and its author has impacted my life. All right, just before we kick off this Foundation Friday episode, I want to acknowledge that it may stir up some uncomfortable thoughts or feelings in you. Just remember, it's okay to have those thoughts. They're just a thought. They're not you. And it's okay to feel the feeling. That's part of the reason we're here, right? To navigate our way through feelings, even the uncomfortable ones. But we're doing this in a gentle and loving way. So take a break if you need to, and remember that you should always seek out the support of a trained therapist if you're feeling you need more tailored help on your road to self-love and recovery. We are going to embrace a radical idea in this episode. Well, I guess it's an idea we discuss in most episodes here on Reverse Reset Restore, but this one is especially important because our Foundation Friday book emphasizes this concept. We are talking about self-love, and in particular, love for the beauty, strength, mastery, and yes, even the brokenness of the body. We're going to talk about radical reflections, unapologetic inquiries, and go through the 10 tools Sonya sets out in her book. But, as always, I like to take a look at the life of the author, so let's learn a little bit about this amazing, beautiful, and gifted soul. Sonya Renee Taylor is a prominent figure known for her impactful work in promoting body positivity, social justice, and radical self-love. Raised in the United States, Taylor has spoken candidly about her experiences navigating societal expectations surrounding beauty and body image as a Black woman. As the founder and CEO of The Body Is Not an Apology, she has spearheaded a global movement aimed at dismantling harmful norms and fostering inclusivity. Through her advocacy, Taylor addresses a wide range of intersecting issues, including racism, ableism, sexism, and homophobia, advocating for equality and empowerment for all individuals. A renowned poet and author, Taylor's writings delve into themes of identity, self-acceptance, and the complexities of oppression. Her books, such as The Body is Not an Apology, The Power of Radical Self-Love, have resonated with audiences worldwide, inspiring a deeper understanding of radical self-love and social transformation. In addition to her literary contributions, Taylor is a sought-after speaker and facilitator, delivering talks and workshops on body liberation, racial justice, and community organization. Her dedication to fostering positive change and empowering individuals to embrace their authentic selves has earned her widespread recognition, numerous accolades, cementing her legacy as a trailblazer in the realms of activism and poetry. Her life partner is a 6-pound Yorkshire Terrier named Anastasia, and she splits her time between California and my home country, New Zealand. Watch this space because methinks Sonya is just getting the party started. In The Body is Not an Apology, Sonya Renee Taylor presents a powerful manifesto that challenges societal norms and celebrates radical self-love in all its forms. Her groundbreaking work invites readers to dismantle the oppressive systems that perpetuate body shame and to embrace your body as vehicles for personal liberation. I don't think I've met a single person who hasn't felt shame about their body at some point in their life. Even people who look like they have it all in terms of our modern day beauty standards can get caught up in shame, often resulting in nips and tucks and fillers and filters to hide any imperfections. Its prevalence is most keenly seen in the health and beauty industry, and of course, those in the public eye like actors and celebrities and influencers. And when we're busy holding certain looks up as the defining image of what it means to be beautiful, it leaves the majority of us firmly out of that ideal. And so the cycle of feeling less than because our bodies don't fit the story society tells us we need to look like in order to be considered hot or sexy or beautiful or pretty or normal continues to wear us down. Sonya reminds us that we don't have to live like this. We have the power to change the narrative of body shame in our lives. We are not bound to the tales of teasing and criticism we were subjected to as children. The good news is we are the authors of our own lives. Let's talk body shame origin stories. We all have them. In the book, Sonya shares an example and then poses the following. If I asked you to recall your first memory of body shame, it is likely that your story would have at least one of the following elements. Developed in your youth, was a response to rapid or unexpected body change, occurred when you became aware of difference, led you to assume there was some should about your body, was reflected or reinforced by familiar, social, cultural, and political messaging, was attached to a story or belief about your value and worth in the world. Reading through this list, I recognized several elements that have played their role in reshaping my belief about my body and the ensuing years, or rather decades, of self-hatred and self-flagellation that were built on these foundations. One story I'll share with you here is about red lipstick. As a girl of about 14, give or take a year or so, I was given a red lipstick. It was bright and gorgeous and oh, so very red. Now, up until this point, I'd only worn lip glosses or shades of light pinks and blush. So this was a, my lips are going to stand out right off of my face kind of lipstick, and I was all for it. I decided I was going to wear it to church because, why not? I was a big church kid at the time. Church was pretty much my life. A lot of my events during the week revolved around church and church activities, so it felt the place to wear it. I soon found out that church was not perhaps the place to wear it. I happened to be stuck in the age where I was a couple of years younger than most of the other teens who were cemented in their friendships, and they were all about their clothes and boys and makeup and hairstyles and all the things that I didn't really care that much about. Yet I was also older than the rest of the kids in church, kind of like being stuck between a rock and a hard place when it came to church people in my life. I didn't even realize it at the time, but there were definitely cliques, even in church, or maybe especially because it was church. Now I look back and I realize that most of those teens, girls, were kind of mean and bullies and not worth the effort the people pleaser in me gave them in order to fit in and be accepted. I guess they were like that because that's how their own insecurities played out. But it still sucks to realize just how cruel some of them were to me just to make themselves feel better. There is a lot to unpack about that time, and I'm sure it will probably come up in other episodes. But let's go back to the lipstick. So I put on this lipstick, feeling a little bit anxious because, well, I was really used to seeing my lips so red, and it made me feel like I would definitely not be invisible. Arriving at church, I almost wiped the lipstick off because I started to second guess wearing it. But I let that feeling go because I loved it. I felt grown up, and I felt beautiful, and I liked the look. At this time, in this age, I really did love everything about me, so I confidently strode into the building. It only took a matter of minutes before a couple of the older girls came up to me and let me know, in no uncertain terms, that red wasn't my colour, how it made my already pale skin look even paler, that it made my blue eyes stand out too much, that my long blonde hair didn't match the ruby red painted on my lips. And perhaps the worst insult of all, the one that crushed me, was when they said I looked too sexy, which was a bad look for a good Christian girl, and people would think I was a slut. I can count on one hand how many times I've ever worn red lipstick since that day, or anything red at all. There are other body shaming moments in my life, but this one sticks out because it was really the beginning of where my self-love and respect for myself and my body began to be replaced with the thoughts of not being good enough. I became aware that I was being acutely judged. Up until this point, I thought I looked great. I thought I was beautiful. I loved my lean, strong, healthy, petite body. These comments from what I now see was the Christian version of the movie Mean Girls, or basically insert any film or TV show set anywhere in an American high school, poured acid on my foundations. And unfortunately, I didn't know how to not let it settle there. There were, by all accounts, far worse things said and done to me, both by the same people in the church and outside of my church community. But this is the moment where it was solidified in my young, impressionable mind that red lipstick somehow made me even more of the other in a group I already was so desperate to be a part of. I'm not alone in this story. I bet you have your own. That one zipping about right now in your mind as I recounted my story, the one where you began to question your own worth. As Sonya writes, it is unsurprising that early on we internalize these negative messages. Being young and particularly impressionable, we take cues from the external world about who we are and who we should be. Looking back now with my adult eyes of experience and with my ability to reflect, with the Teflon-like resilience that I've had to blockade on me, sifting through the layers of sediment caused by taking on board these negative messages, I understand that their actions were out of their own insecurities. But our actions, our words, our behaviors can have deep impact, not just on ourselves, but on other people. Hurt people, as the saying goes. And sometimes we might not even be aware that we're doing it. But when we become aware and we still choose to behave this way, that just amplifies to me the level of self-hatred and pain that that person is in. Sonya talks about this in the first chapter of this book, where she introduces the 3 pieces. The 3 pieces are this: make peace with not understanding, make peace with difference, and make peace with yourself. Let's take a little look at each one. Make peace with not understanding. Sonya writes, we must make peace with not understanding. Understanding is not a prerequisite for honor, love, or respect. I don't really understand how electricity works, but I don't need to understand it to appreciate what it does for me. Looking at you, specifically air conditioner. How many of us truly understand how the internet works? Yet here we are, enjoying having the world at our fingertips. Now, I've mentioned two things that give us purpose, and so we have an appreciation for those things because we understand just enough of what we think we need to because of what they offer us. But things can get a bit more complex when it comes to others and ourselves. What Sonya suggests with making peace with not understanding is dropping the limitations we place on ourselves and being open to not needing to know. Not knowing is an opportunity for exploration without judgment and demands. It leaves room for the possibility that we might conduct all manner of investigation, and after said research is completed, we still may not get it. I do a lot of research for the show, and particularly when it comes to the episodes where I'm talking about specific functions of the body. I do my best to make sense of it, but sometimes I still don't quite understand how it works. Heck, people who study these specific areas of the body or its functions all of their lives may still not quite understand how it works. We know where thoughts are housed in the brain, but we still don't 100% know how they happen. That doesn't stop them from occurring though, right? There is no possible way for us to know and understand all things. It doesn't mean we shouldn't try to understand, but if we can make peace with the fact that some things will remain a mystery to us and that it's okay, it brings us to a place of peace. As Sonya says, here is a place where acceptance becomes a tool of expansion. Genuine acceptance invites reality without resistance. Freeing ourselves from the need to understand everything can bring about a tremendous amount of peace. The second piece is make peace with difference. Sonya says, the idea that we are all the same is often a mask. It is what we tell ourselves when we haven't mastered the first piece. Rather than owning that we don't understand someone's experiences, we shrink it or stuff it into our tiny capsule of knowledge. We homogenize it by proclaiming we are all the same. This is an interesting thought that Sonya expresses here, and I am a little two-minded about it. On one hand, I totally get what she is saying here and agree that we are all capable of minimizing or trivializing the experiences of others and ourselves. We have our differences, our diversities, which set us apart. But I don't know if I entirely agree that saying we are the same is a mask or a shield. We are all the same on some level. We all have bodies. We have the capacity to think, feel, act out, love, hate, adapt. Our sameness acts as a bridge to connect our differences. Not one of us is exactly alike. We may share an experience together, but how I see and experience that will be completely different to how you see and experience it, because we're our own unique person. And that is the point Taylor is making right here, that we can't copy and paste human beings to fit only one storyline. So the second piece, making peace with difference, is really about opening up your mind, your own way of seeing the world, and recognizing the beauty and value in everyone else who is not like you, which is everyone else. This second piece ties into one of the most compelling aspects of Taylor's book, which is her unwavering commitment to intersectionality. She recognizes that body shame is not experienced in isolation, but is deeply entwined with various forms of oppression, including racism, sexism, ableism, and homophobia. Through her insightful analysis and her personal anecdotes, Taylor sheds light on how these intersecting identities shape our perceptions of self-worth and beauty standards. Making peace with differences means setting aside our judgments and our preconceived ideas of what a body should look like. And this is a tough one if you've been busy keeping yourself and your world small. The third piece is perhaps the one that may challenge us the most. Make peace with your body. Sonya writes, your body is the body it is. Your belief that your body should be some other body other than the body it is likely a reflection of your struggles with the first two pieces. She goes on to say, What if you accepted the fact that much of how you view your body and your judgments of it are learned things, messages you have deeply internalized that have created an adversarial relationship? Hating your body is like finding a person you despise and then choosing to spend the rest of your life with them while loathing every moment of the partnership. I've talked about this before in previous episodes, and this third piece is the one that I am continually working on. Peace with the body after years of it being a battleground is one of persistence. I used to get so bloody angry at its brokenness, the constant pain, the daily headaches that crawled into the back of my eyes, scratching their way out, the extra weight I had to lumber around with, the way I spoke to myself, and the thoughts I would indulge myself in against my body, quite frankly, are disgusting because I felt disgusted with myself. Now, I've done a lot of work and forgiveness to get to a place of peace and love and acceptance for the body I have. I've also asked my body to forgive me for my thoughts and actions and words that I've spoken against it. This brokered peace isn't always actioned. Now, some days it's easy to slip back into those old hostile thought patterns. But I am much quicker now to recognizing where I am gearing up for an assault against myself, and I'm able to bring myself back to a place of peace and acceptance for the me of this moment. Throughout this book, Sonya gently and lovingly offers room for the reader to engage themselves with a number of radical reflections, such as phrases like "get over it" and "it's all in your head" are rooted in ableism. They are body terrorism against non-normative brains. Let's stop telling people to get over it and start asking them, how can I help you heal? I love this idea. It turns the passive act of reading into one of engagement and ultimately, for those willing to do the work of radical reflecting, empowerment. Another technique employed by Taylor are the moments she names unapologetic inquiries. These are questions that ask the reader to think back over their own lives and seek some clarity on maybe the moments where something shifted in the way you connected to your body and its place in your world. Like the lipstick story I shared earlier, there are many examples that force you, in a loving way, to explore the depths of yourself. For example, on page 10, the unapologetic inquiry asks, can you recall an occasion where you compared yourself to someone? How did the comparison impact your self-esteem and self-confidence? How did it impact your ideas about the other person? And on page 113, she poses the questions. What have you been holding in secrecy, shame, or embarrassment? How has it kept you disconnected from others? What are you willing to let go of for the sake of connection? All through this book, Taylor's message is clear. True liberation begins with radical self-love. She provides readers with practical tools and exercises to cultivate compassion, acceptance, and resilience in the face of societal pressures. From affirmations to boundary-setting strategies, Taylor empowers readers to reclaim ownership of their bodies and rewrite their narratives. Here are 10 tools Taylor encourages readers to implement into their lives in order to make those shifts and forge the path towards reclamation and radical self-love. Number 1, dump the junk. We've talked about this concept before, particularly back in our 31 Days of Self-Care program, which we ran as part of Mental Health Awareness Month. Here, Sonya encourages us to take a social media break or make a different choice about the content we consume. She writes, the content we are exposed to impacts us. Whether we like it or not, we are taking in toxic messages. I've been thinking about this a lot because I like watching shows that are pretty dark, serial killers and the like. And sometimes I think about, is this stuff really good for me to be watching? I know it's a TV show, but the reality is that some of the storylines are really horrific and are based on real life situations. Watching this stuff can't really be that healthy for the psyche, can it? I'd say the same for the shows I don't watch. There are a lot of mindless, in quotation, reality shows where people are doing themselves some serious self-harm, all for likes and the opportunity to become an influencer or famous. These shows are our Colosseum, the participants, our gladiators. And our consumption of these shows prove we are not so far removed from our ancient Roman counterparts. We might not be seeing people viciously fight to the death, blood and guts on display, but the battle of this arena is in self-worth. And we've determined who lives and dies in the world of social media by our likes and subscribes and keyboard warrior comments. Number 2, curb body bad-mouthing. I have never spoken so badly about anyone as I do about myself. Isn't it shocking the words we utter and the thoughts we entertain against ourselves when we would never allow others to speak that way about themselves or anyone else? Yet for various reasons, we viciously assault ourselves day after day. As Sonya reminds us, radical self-love summons us to be our most expansive selves, knowing that the more unflinchingly powerful we allow ourselves to be, the more unflinchingly powerful others feel capable of being. Our unapologetic embrace of our bodies gives others permission to unapologetically embrace theirs. Number 3, reframe your framework. I'm going to read a huge chunk of this third tool here because Sonya says it in a way I don't feel a need to expand upon. She says, did you know that your body is not the enemy? I know how difficult this concept can be when we feel as though we have been at war with our bodies for our entire existence. But this is a case of friendly fire, folks, and we're usually the shooters. Think back to your last cold or flu. Chills, fever, scratchy throat, fatigue, that crusty stuff that builds around you. You get the picture. Awful, right? And it is our mean old body's fault. After all, the body is working overtime to disperse those white blood cells to the site of the virus, attempting to squash its insidious attack on our immune system. Awful, mean old body, right? Wrong. Feeling crappy when we're sick is not a sign of a body that is mutinying. It's the unfortunate byproduct of a body working exponentially hard to return us to wellness. Our body is fighting on our behalf even as we curse it as though it were a cheating lover. Practicing reframe your framework can be confounding for those of us navigating chronic illness or gender nonconformity. Feeling trapped in a body that does not feel like it has your best interests at heart assuredly makes sense. It is hard to love a vessel that appears to be the author of significant pain. What a terrifying experience to wake up in constant pain or in a body that does not feel in alignment with who you know yourself to be. It may very well feel like your body is against you. Remember that this is a thinking, doing, being journey, and we will need to try on new beliefs and actions in the service of radical self-love. With tool 3 in mind, we are invited to ask ourselves, what peace, power, or joy can be gained by deciding that this body I am inextricably tied to for the rest of my life is my enemy? If there is no access to peace, power, or joy in your current framework, then it simply doesn't serve you. Number 4, meditate on a mantra. Mention the word mantra or meditation can immediately create a whirling in the mind to shut down and close off. Mantras can also be a practice that make us feel uncomfortable or awkward. Sonya says that's kind of the point. She writes, choosing a mantra is about finding a phrase or a word we desire to live by. It should make us uncomfortable. It should make us think, how dare I believe such an audacious thing about myself? Marissa Peer, author and self-help teacher, uses the phrase, I am enough. Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. You probably already have a few mantras of your own that you pull out on all the occasions where life feels like it's kicking you down into the dirt. How about changing the script and choosing a mantra that can inspire, encourage, and motivate you into a kinder, more loving relationship with yourself? Sonya encourages the reader to try this out for 30 days. Practice meditating 5 times a day for 30 days and see what happens. Invite the discomfort of sitting in the stillness of the present and saying words you do not yet truly believe. I promise that radical self-love transformation will be birthed in the quiet of those vexatious moments. Here are a few mantras you might want to try for this practice that focus on initiating a new relationship with your body. I love my body. I am a vessel of radical self-love. I look for ways to show my body the love it deserves. My body is my ally. I have the body I need to live my best life. My body always supports me. Radical self-love means honoring my body. My body is not an apology. Number 5, banish the binary. Sonya discusses how our binary ways of looking at things is a rigid viewpoint. She says, we are not simply good or bad, vessels of pure divine light or mongers of hate, interrupters of body terrorism everywhere, or single-handedly upholding the oppression of bodies across the planet. If good and bad were the choices on a quiz about who we are, the answer would be all of the above. Humans, i.e. you and I, are doing and being all those things all the time. If human behavior were charted on a scatter graph, we each would have dots on every portion of the spectrum, in the middle, at the ends, and every place in between. Binary thinking limits our possibility, squelches compassion, and reinforces narrow ideas of how we get to be in the world. Binary thinking keeps us small. It keeps us limited. When we banish the binary from our thoughts and our actions, we open up the world and harness the ability for us to experience the radical self-love we were created for. Number 6, explore your terrain. How many of us are guilty of denying our body our own touch? How quickly do you get in and out of the shower, doing the scantiest clean as quickly as you can in the regions you've been taught to feel ashamed of? How little attention do you pay to areas like in between your toes, or the back of your ears, or your knees? How often do you curse the folds of flesh below your navel, or the stretch marks that ribbon on the top of your thighs, or the way you feel when you walk around? Apologizing for existing in this constant state of play of self-hatred and comparison. Tool number 6 offers us the opportunity to explore this vessel we inhabit, not with judgment, but with curiosity and thankfulness and love. Sonya writes, it is impossible to be a responsible steward of a body we constantly avoid being intimate with. Building love relationships require getting to know the other party. Our relationship with our body is no different. As we learn them, we can access their unique power and gifts. This is a tool I have implemented, and I'm not going to lie, it has been a struggle and even quite uncomfortable. As we've discussed in our review of books like The Body Keeps a Score by Bessel van der Kolk and When the Body Says No by Gabor Mate, our body holds onto our trauma. So for many of us, that trauma is rewoken by certain places on our body or by touch. So my suggestion is that you start in the places of your body that won't stir up any trauma. If that means you pay attention to and love your pinky finger for a month, great. Take time to cultivate a relationship with your whole body, working up towards those parts of your body you have neglected or you've felt hatred against if you're not in a place to go there right now. Loving all of the other parts of yourself means that you're allowing yourself to build a connection which can allow you to take yourself there to the parts that you may have felt are off limits due to shame, embarrassment, or trauma. Number 7. Be in a movement. Sonya encourages finding a way to move your body that brings you joy and comfort. I discussed this in our Fitness Friday episodes of our 31 Days of Self-Care for Mental Health Awareness Month. Running is not for everyone, as Sonya found out, nor is playing rugby or hiking mountains. I love swimming, my partner not so much. He likes cycling, and I only want to get on my bike if it's 20 degrees or less and it's really overcast or rainy. Dancing brings me joy where it might make others feel cringe. Be in a movement is about moving your body in a way that is right for you. not going to the gym and doing 100 planks because that's what you should do. Get rid of the word should. Get it right out of your vocab. It's rigid, it's inflexible, and it's judgmental. Move, definitely move, but move your body in a way that it loves, and it will thank you for it. Number 8, make a new story. Do you remember those books from the 80s where you got to choose where you go to next at the end of certain chapters? I love those books because you never knew what was going to happen, and you could redo the book and the options over and over again to go down different pathways. Eventually, you ended up at some type of ending. But the journey had multiple ways to adventure. And this is the same for our lives. We can always choose different stories. Even if the one we've been writing looks a little stuck, and obviously we can't go back in time necessarily, but we can forge a new pathway, a new storyline that deviates away from the one we're in. As Sonya reminds us, our body shame is a story whose chapters began being written in some of our earliest memories. Body shame is not a thrilling page turner, but a grueling text of embarrassment, judgment, and grief. Our story made us believe we would never have love, we would never be good enough, that we would always be rejected. Decades later, we find ourselves still stuck. The body shame story on loop in our minds. We do not have to keep that story. We absolutely have the power to turn in that sheep and tawdry tail and make a new story. Number 9, be in a community. This is a reminder that we do not and cannot go through this life alone. It's like that saying, a burden shared is a burden halved. This is a lesson I've been working on. Call it shame or fear of rejection or pride or a combination of all these 3 plus more. I've struggled to share my preconceived burdens with others. Maybe it's because, as Sonya highlights, our perception of vulnerability as weakness is a function of body terrorism. Finding radical self-love environments are a central element to our healing. It's my hope that this podcast serves to be for you, as it is for me, a place of collective compassion, a habitat for radical self-love expression. As Sonya states, it is critical that we find communities of care and compassion. In their absence, we are relegated to an echo chamber of pathological body hatred and oppression. And the 10th tool, give yourself some grace. You're not going to get it right all the time. There are days where you'll wake up with a crushing headache, or the knees will ache when you get out of bed, or you'll notice the graying hair at your temples and begrudge your body's existence. This 10th tool is probably the most important one. Give yourself some grace. Be kind. Be gentle. Even when you are in the midst of a tantrum at your body's failings, this doesn't mean you are a failure or that you will never improve your relationship with your body. As Sonya discusses how she deals with these days for herself, I am a human being in a world that still profits from body shame. Every day we awake to messages that reinforce the narrative that we are deficient. The body shame amplifier will occasionally ring loud enough to feel like it is drowning out the chorus of our divinity. On those days, the work is still to love. The body is not an apology, it's not just a book, it is a movement. Taylor's message reverberates beyond the pages, inspiring readers to advocate for systematic change and challenge the status quo. Her emphasis on collective healing and solidarity underscores the importance of community in the journey towards self-acceptance and social justice. This book challenges readers to confront their internalized biases and embrace the radical notion that all bodies are worthy of love and respect. And for a lot of us, particularly women, this can feel like an impossible task. Taylor's words and strategies here are a beacon of hope in a world that often seeks to diminish our worth based on our arbitrary standards. This book is a testament to the power of self-love as a catalyst for personal and societal transformation. If you've enjoyed this episode and would like to be in to win a copy of The Body Is Not an Apology, please come over to the Facebook page or Instagram page and share on one of our posts for this episode your favorite takeaway of this book. And while you're there, please be sure to like and follow if you haven't done already so that you can be a part of the Reverse Reset Restore community. I am so grateful for the opportunity to grow together. As we close out this episode, I will leave you with a final thought from Sonya Renee Taylor. The voice of doubt, shame, and guilt blaring in our heads is not our voice. It is a voice we have been given by society steeped in shame. It is the outside voice, our authentic voice, our inside voice. It is the voice of radical self-love.